who believe that God exists in a properly basic way. So those would be 7 arguments that one could use in defense of a Christian world and life view, all of which I think are sound and therefore cogent and provide justification for believing in what C.S. Lewis called mere Christianity.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Stan, so much. When you walked in today, you thought, well, this would be the highlight of the day. It sounds a bit like a joke. Did you hear the one about 4 apologists and an atheist that gathered at a Christian book expo? You know. I am delighted to be part of this conversation and honored for what's going to come ahead. I prepared my remarks for today as I was staring at a painting of the island of Bougainville in the South Pacific. My father was stationed on this island in World War II. 300 men were placed there. 17 survived. One of the 17 was a painter. He made 17 renditions of Bougainville and gave one to each of the survivors. I have my father's hanging in our study at home. I stare at it each day and I think about my dad's faith. Dad was a Methodist Sunday school teacher until he fought in the Second World War. He never went to church again after that. He struggled and questioned the very existence of a God who is all perfect and all powerful and all loving in a world like this. Dad had his first heart attack when I was 2 and died of a heart attack when I was a senior in college and never came to terms with the faith issues of his life. And I grew up with all those questions. I grew up with all those issues inside of me. They led me eventually to a doctorate in apologetics and to teaching apologetic materials on 4 different seminary faculties and to our conversation today. I'm honored to talk with you about my father's issues. They are my issues. I think they are your issues as well. We are here today to talk about 2 questions. The first has to do with the reality of the God of Christianity, and the second with the relevance of such a God. As regards the reality of a God of Christianity, my central assertion today is going to be this. Faith in God is a relationship. All relationships require a commitment which transcends the evidence and becomes self-validating. That is the case in a marriage. When a person examines evidence but then steps beyond the evidence into a self-validating experience. That's the case in choosing a school or a job or a friendship or any relationship. We examine the evidence, and we'll do a great deal of that today. You've already heard today about cosmological, teleological, moral, ontological arguments for God's existence. We'll talk together today, I would imagine, as regards evidence for the authority and trustworthiness of Scripture and the divinity of Christ. But I'm going to say at the end of the day that faith in God is ultimately a relational decision. A relationship that must, at the end of the day, be experienced. In that regard, I rather envy Mr. Hitchens his task today. I would think that it must in some ways be easier to question the existence of an experience one has not had than it would be to argue for such an experience with a person who is unwilling to do what is necessary to have that experience. At the end of the day, I'm going to be arguing for relationship as the category of faith. As regards the relevance of that relationship, I would make these assertions. First, I would remind us that we're not dealing with religion, per se. Mr. Hitchens has said that religion poisons everything. I would suggest religion has no ontological status. It has no independent reality. There are religions. There is no such thing really as religion. Just as there are leaves, but no such thing really as leaves. To put all religions under one category and castigate religion because of the activities of some religious people seems to me something like condemning medicine because of the practices of some doctors. Again, we're going to talk, I think, about religion in the abstract, but I'm hoping we'll think about relationship. I'm going to assert today that we cannot measure the moral relevance of any religion necessarily by the lifestyle of each of its adherents. There's a causality question. How do we know the degree to which the religion caused the behavior? How do we know the degree to which the behavior is consistent with the moral values of that religion? It's a cause and effect. And then ultimately, I'm going to suggest today that God redeems all that He allows. In that relationship, a personal interaction with the God of the universe has enormous relevance for all of us who live in a chaotic world. God joined us in that world. To paraphrase Irenaeus, God became one of us that we might become one with Him. It's that relationship I'm looking forward to defending today with you.
Thank you. Pastor Wilson?
Yes. Thank you. It's an honor and pleasure to be invited here. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, so my thanks to the organizers of this event. Those of you who've seen the movie Collision or who see it tonight will see that Christopher and I are in danger of becoming friends if we don't watch it.
We'll see what we can do there.
We'll see what we do. That's right. And I would remind Christopher, showing up at events like this, the Scripture says that bad companions corrupt good morals, so you need to be careful. And thanks to you all for coming to this event to watch Christopher Hitchens thrown into a den of lambs. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to address my comments at perhaps a different level. I'm in obvious sympathy with what my fellow Christians here have said and familiar with the arguments and appreciate them. But I'd like to speak on a different tier. And that, when you look up here, you see us sitting behind a table and we're all speaking, and you're listening to and watching what's coming out of our heads. But if there's another thing you can do, and I would urge you to do this, and say, what are they all sitting on up there? What's supporting all of them? I hear what they're saying, and they say and different things, and they qualify or agree and nuance and so forth, but there are certain fundamental assumptions that all of us share. We're saying different things, but we're all sitting on a chair, we're all on this stage, and we share those things in common. And this is the level I would like to address here in my comments. What kind of universe does it take to support a debate like this? What would the universe have to be like? How would it have to get here in order for this to be a reasonable debate? Christopher thinks the universe is a certain way, and I want to maintain that the way that Christopher thinks the universe is would not generate a debate like this. It would not generate this kind of collision. To illustrate, if you were to take a bottle of Mountain Dew and a bottle of Dr. Pepper, do you want to be the Mountain Dew or the Dr. Pepper?
No, it's not.
Okay, well, if you took the two bottles of pop and shook them up and put them on the table and they were both fizzing over, it wouldn't occur to you to ask which one was winning the debate. They're not debating. They're just fizzing. They're not debating. It's just matter in motion. They're not debating. It's just a chemical reaction. Well, what does that mean if you're an atheist and you say that all that is, the cosmos, is just matter in motion? It's just stuff moving around. It's this infinite billiard ball table with the balls going in every direction. It's just this complex chemical reaction. Now, we are complex chemical reactions. I think according to Christopher, I think Christian thoughts because that's what these chemicals always do at this temperature and under these conditions. I don't think them because they're true or false. I think them because this is just the way it is. The problem is that that doesn't just apply to me. That applies to him also. So he's making this claim about the way the universe is, but he's not making the claim because it's true. He's making this claim because he's fizzing just like I am. I fizz Christianly, he fizzes atheistically, but we're both fizzing. Neither of us are arguing or debating. In order for a true debate to occur, we have to be made in the image of God. In order for a true exchange of views, we have to have something here in us that goes beyond the matter in motion, that goes beyond our physical construction. Now, this relates to something else. I think this applies to morality. I think it applies to rationality. I think it applies to aesthetics, truth, goodness, and beauty. I think this reduction that I'm proposing is something that makes it impossible for an atheist to mount a case against the Christian faith. That doesn't mean that there is not room for questions. I'm a pastor and I've brought up kids and I've taught in Christian classrooms. I would want to distinguish between, however, a doubt and a question. Doubts are those sorts of things that can never be answered in principle.
30 seconds.
A doubt cannot be answered. A question can be answered. Why does Paul say this and James say this? Why does one of the synoptic gospels say this and the other synoptic gospel say that? Those are reasonable questions. I want to maintain, however, that Christians don't need to answer anything coming from the atheist quarter because those are simply doubts, universal doubts. They're not questions because atheism can't support the kind of universe that is necessary to generate a question. In order to generate a question, you have to know where you are to begin with. God had to put us here.
Thank you very much, John.